Hello everyone, my name is Finding Pepper and welcome to the tile scrolling platformer expansion where we're expanding on a tutorial series made by Griffpatch. This episode will be adding water to our game as well as a few types of enemies, the Cheep Cheep, the Blooper, and this Jellyfish thing which I'm not sure what it's called. So let's start by grabbing our assets. So go to my YouTube tutorial assets project, there'll be a link to this in the description, and find the TSPE water sprite. Then drag it into your backpack, then tie a sprite, and then head back over to your project. Alright, we're here so we can grab out our sprite and go into the costumes, and you'll see we have some water costumes, some more ground costumes, some Mario costumes for swimming, and our enemies. I'll go ahead and just drag these all into their respective sprites, starting with the water and sand tiles. Then the Marios will go into the Mario sprite. And then finally our enemies, starting with the Cheep Cheep. Now make sure you got all of these in all of our places, and if you're sure that you do, you can go ahead and delete our asset sprite. Let's start by adding these new tiles to the tile key map list so we can place them down. I'll put my water tile on the 2 key, as well as the surface. The other 3 surface costumes are just animation, so we don't need to bind them to a key. And then while we're here, I'll just go ahead and put these sand tiles on a key. I'll put them on 1. Then for the tile shape, I'll use a tilde for my water costumes. And again, we don't need to worry about the animation frames. And then our sand is solid. So yes, we're adding a new tile shape for our water. Okay, we can hide these lists. Now we can go ahead and add tile sorting for our sand tiles. This is optional, but I'll just do it right now while we're here and setting up our tiles. So we'll add a tile group of 5 for our sand. So for each of our sand tiles, we'll add a 5 in its place in the tile groups list. Then the tile recipes, again for each tile, we'll just start at the top face and then move around clockwise, so top, right, bottom, left. And for each of those sides, we'll add either a 1 or a 0. A 1 if there should be a tile adjacent to it, and a 0 if there should not. So for our 75, our first one, it'll be 1, 1, 0, 0. Then 76, 1, 1, 0, 1. And then I'll just go ahead and do these for all of them. Now for our last 3 sand tiles, I'd like these to be used in the case that the sand is only 1 block thick. So after our first arrangement, put a space, and then the same code, but with the bottom face being a 0 instead of a 1. So I'll do 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, and then 0, 0, 0, 1. Like so. Now we can hide these lists. Finally, I would like my water to be slightly transparent. So in our when I receive position tiles, so here in the else if tile is less than 2, I will check if tile equals 70 or tile equals 71. Those are our water tiles. Yours might be different. Now if it is one of these tiles, we'll set our ghost effect to 20, and the else we'll set it to 0. So these are the only tiles that will get a ghost effect. Now finally, our water surface has an animation, so I'll just duplicate this whole thing, remove the part about bumping, and we'll just check if tile equals 71, and then leave this here. Alright, to run this, now I'll try placing down some of our new tiles. Our sand seems to be working pretty well. And then our water. Here we go, you can see it is a bit transparent, which is nice. And then our surface is animating. Awesome. But we can walk on this, and we would like to be able to swim in it. Let's go ahead and do that. In the Mario sprite, find our fixed collision indirection block. This is where we do our collision, so this is where we'll check if we're in a water tile. I'll make a variable called liquid for the sprite only, and that will hold what liquid we're in. I'll set the variable to the empty value at the start of fixed collision and direction. Just like we set solid, we'll also set liquid. Now in our fixed collision at point, we'll duplicate this tile shape check and check if tile shape equals the tilde, which is our water tile. We'll keep the stop the script so it doesn't run any collisions at that point, but we will set our liquid variable to water. Now real quick, if we run that and show the liquid variable, you'll see in the water it says water, and then we go out and it will be empty. So just like that, now we can use this variable and we can determine what liquid we're in, and if we're in the water we can make the movement a bit different. So first of all, we'll want to move a bit slower. So in our move sprite X block, after we fix collision, we'll check if liquid equals water, and if it is, we can slow ourselves down by setting speed X to speed X multiplied by 0.9. So this will decrease our speed when we're in the water. Now we can do something similar in our move sprite Y, setting speed Y to speed Y times, and now I'm going to change this one to be a 0.5, so we fall significantly slower. Running that, you can see that we are indeed falling and moving slower while we're in the water. Now we'd like to be able to jump wherever we are in the water, not just on the ground. So at the end of move sprite Y, we can again check if liquid equals water. And then inside that, we'll check if falling is greater than 1. And if it is greater than 1, then we can set it back to 1. The reason I'm not setting it to 0 here is so we can tell whether we're touching the ground or not, even when we're in the water. Because we can actually jump if our falling variable is slightly greater than 0 as well. So yeah, we'll still be able to jump here. We'll now go into the handle keys jump crouch custom block, and in our jumping scripts, I'll get an if else, put what we have in the else, and the check will be if liquid equals water. So if we're in the water, we'll want to do something a little bit different. So first of all, instead of setting jumping to 3 when Mario is many, we'll set jumping to 6 as soon as we start jumping, so we can't hold it as long. Now the sound will be different as well. We can get it from the sound sprite, find the swim sound effect, and drag it into the Mario sprite. Then we'll play that sound when we jump in the water. Now rather than setting speed Y to 13, I'll set it to 15 minus the jumping variable. So the longer we hold down the jump button, the less speed we'll get. It's just a few more minor things to do. I'm going to say we shouldn't crouch in the water, so I'm going to add to this check around the set player action to crouch, if not liquid equals water. Then finally, in our handle keys left right block, I'm going to add a and not liquid equals water around this make skid smoke, so we don't generate any dust in the water. Like so. Now we can run this, and now we can jump as much as we like in the water. Awesome. Now we're still displaying the old walkie animation, so let's get our swim animation going. Head to the paint sprite custom block. Down at the bottom, around our switch costume to join Mario Walk 1, we'll get an if else. And our check for this will be, surprise surprise, if liquid equals water. And we'll also want to check if falling is greater than 0, so we can display our normal walk costume if we're standing on the ground underwater. Now if this is true, we're in the water and we're off the ground, we'll switch costume to the swim 1 costume, join Mario swim 1, and then we can keep the switch costume to costume number plus 4 player frame, etc. because the swim animation also has 4 frames. Now for the jumping, we can check if liquid equals water and falling is greater than 0. Now it's the jumping variable which will actually tell us whether we're pressing the jump button, so we can check if jumping is greater than 0. And then inside this, we have 2 swim costumes, as you can see here. So with an if else, if jumping is greater than 8, then we'll display one of them. Switch costume to Mario Swim 6, and then the else switch costume to Mario Swim 5. Then we'll want to stop the script in either case, so put that outside of the if else. Alright, we can now go ahead and try this out, and you'll see that we are indeed displaying the swim animation when we are swimming, and then the walk animation when we're walking on the ground. Awesome, so that is swimming. Let's now see how enemies react to the water. Let's place down a Goomba, see what happens. Any guesses? Yes, it just keeps walking over the water because we haven't told it how to handle water. So it's just thinking it's a solid block. So head into the enemy sprite, and again we'll make ourselves a liquid variable for the sprite only. Set liquid to the empty value at the top of fixed collision and direction, then in fixed collision at point. Check if tile shape is tilde, and then again set liquid to water. Now we'll do the same slowing down in move sprite X. Check if a liquid equals water, then set speed X to speed X times 0.9, like so. Then in move sprite Y, again if liquid equals water, set speed Y to speed Y times 0.5, just like we did in the player sprite. Run this, and now the Goomba should, slowly drift down into the water. Awesome. Now you'll notice we can't squish Goombas in the water. We can fix that if you feel so inclined by going into the Mario sprite, into move player, and rather than here checking if falling is greater than 2, we check if falling is greater than 0. Because remember, falling is only 1 when we're in the water normally. So now we should be able to squish it just like that. Yeah, when it's walking on the ground, no such luck. Okay, now I think it is about time for some enemies. How about you? We're gonna start by dragging one costume from each enemy into the tile sprite, so we can place it down in the editor. Open up the tile keymap list, and add 3 9s for each of those enemies. Back in the enemy sprite, we'll find our spawn type block, and then for our first one, that is costume 84, could be different for you, so you should check. If tile type equals 84, set type Cheep Cheep. The costume in the enemy sprite is 34. Again, it could be different for you. Width I'll make 15 and height 15. In move enemy, down at the bottom, if type equals Cheep Cheep, we're going to make a new block, tick Cheep Cheep. Run without screen refresh, and stick it right there. Now first we'll get some basic movement. If direction is greater than 0, then if speed x is less than 3, change speed x by 0.25. Now in the else, if we're moving to the left, if it's greater than -3, we'll change speed x by -0.25. Then we'll use our move sprite x block. Now we can do the animation. So we'll change frame by 0.5, then set our costume variable to root costume plus floor of frame modulo 2. So this is just our standard animation script. Then we can paint sprite. And then let's just run that real quick to make sure everything is going smoothly up to this point. So grab our Cheep Cheep and place it down. And now it is moving along the water. And then it turns around when it hits the wall. Just lovely. Okay. Now, as it stands, our Cheep Cheep can actually hurt our player, so let's real quick grab an if touching player, if touching Mario, broadcast Mario hurt. Alright. Great. So now we die when we touch it. Awesome. Now let's see what happens if we put our Cheep Cheep in the air. I'll just clear out some space. put a Cheep Cheep up there, and it will just go flying back and forth through the air. Generally, when Cheep Cheeps are placed in the air, they sort of bounce along the surface of the water. So let's go ahead and do that. So after we move sprite X, let's get our tile where we are. So get tile at XY. Now only if tile shape equals the empty value will we change speed Y by -1. So giving it gravity. Otherwise we will set speed Y to 0. Then we can use our move sprite Y block. Like so. Run this, and you'll see now it just falls down to the water. But what if we want it to jump on the water? Well, in the else, we can check if tile equals our water surface tile, which for me is tile 71. You should check, it could be different for you. Then we'll set speed Y to, say, 15. Now if we run this, now it jumps along the surface of the water. Okay, now it is time for bloopers. So back in spawn type, if tile type is 85, we'll set type blooper. The costume is 36, 2 more than the Cheep Cheep. Now in move enemy, we'll do the same thing we did for the Cheep Cheep. If type equals blooper, make a block called tick blooper. Run with that, screen refresh, and stick it right here. Now the blooper's behavior is a bit more interesting. It is going to sink down in the water and every so often propel itself back upwards, and sometimes off to the side a little bit. So we can start by changing frame by 1. I'll use the frame variable as a sort of timer, so we know how long it's been since we last propelled ourselves upwards. Then we'll also want to change our speed Y by like -0.3. So get some singing action going on there. As I said, every so often the blooper will propel itself upwards. So we can use our frame variable to check if it's time to do that. So we'll say if frame equals 48, then that's when we start propelling upwards. Now we don't always just go straight upwards, sometimes we go to the side a little bit. We can use our direction variable to hold what direction we're going. So I'll point in direction, pick random, -75 to 75. Up at the top I'll set rotation style, don't rotate, so we don't see any of this rotation. We're going to apply our speed over multiple frames. So we can say if frame is greater than 1 less than 48, which is 47. Frame is greater than 47. We can set our speed X and speed Y variables. So I'm going to use sine and cosine to determine what we should set these to. These are the variables that are used in the move steps block. If you don't know how they work, that's totally fine. You can just take my word for it. We'll set speed X to sine of direction multiplied by 10, and then set speed Y to cosine of direction multiplied by 10. So this is sort of like moving 10 steps, but with our speed variables. Now if frame equals 52, we can set frame back to 0. And in fact, we can add a little bit of variation to this. We can set frame from pick random 0 to 10 instead of just plain 0, so the time between each movement varies a little bit. Now we'll want to have some deceleration as well, so we can set speed X to speed X times 0.8, and set speed Y to speed Y times 0.8 as well. Then we can use our move sprite X and move sprite Y. Now because we built in deceleration into our tick blooper code, we don't need that deceleration in our move sprite Y block. So around this we can check if not type equals blooper. And then same in move sprite X. Like so. Back to our blooper block. The last thing we need to do is animation. So set costume, and now we have two costumes. They don't just loop over and over again like this. No, the second costume is only displayed right before the blooper propels itself upwards. Now we can use the frame variable to test that. I'll set costume to root costume plus, and then we can put a boolean in here. Frame is greater than 40. And these booleans, true, false, when they're put into a number input, they return 1 if they're true and 0 if they're false. So if it's true, then we'll add 1 to the root costume, and if it's false, we'll just do the plain old root costume. Then finally, we can paint sprite. Run this and place down a blooper, like so. And there it goes. Let's try placing this near the surface and see what happens. And yeah, you can see these guys soon begin swimming out of the water. We can prevent that by checking if not tile equals 70, which is my water tile. Again, change that to match whatever your water tile is. Then we set frame to 0. So if we're out of the water, then we reset our movement timer. And while we're here, we might as well add damage. So just if standard, if touching Mario, broadcast Mario hurt. Great. Now you can see, if we wait, it will wait till it's a little ways down in the water to begin moving upwards. And then let's just test death. There we go. Awesome. So this enemy is looking great. The animation too is looking pretty good. Now we just have one enemy left to add. That's the simplest of all, so no need to be too worried. In spawn type, if tile type equals 86, set type Jellyfish, costume 38. We'll leave the width and height the same. Now in move enemy, we don't even need a special custom block for this one because it's so simple. Check if type equals Jellyfish. Then all we need to do is the animation, which we can do standard way, change frame by 0.25, then set costume to root costume plus floor of frame mod 4, because there's 4 costumes for this guy. Then we paint sprite, and then we do our damage scripts. If touching Mario, broadcast Mario hurt. Here we go, stick that guy down. And then if we touch it, we die. Okay, so that's just a very simple enemy. I'm not sure how common of an enemy this is in Mario games, but I saw it in some of the SMA4 videos I was watching when trying to figure out how exactly bloopers and Cheep Cheeps behave. So, there we go. That's a fun way to spruce up your underwater areas, I guess. Alright, but that is about it for this episode. And this episode may be the last in the series, because it has been a long while since Griffpatch has posted the last episode of the tile-scrolling platformer. Plus, I just kind of prefer doing my own projects. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great rest of your day, and goodbye!